first witness is making the case for the answer, yes, we should join the TPNW, Dr. Rebecca Johnson. Rebecca is a lifelong campaigner for the abolition of nuclear weapons at Greenham Common, at the UN, and at many other fora around the world. She was the founding president of ICAN, the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, and now directs the Acronym Institute. So, with another round of thunderous virtual applause, will you please welcome Dr. Rebecca Johnson?
Thank you so much. And thank you to Peace Child International for organising this Model Citizens Assembly. And it's such an appropriate time. I really felt that that wonderful video from UNA was a great way to start, as it allows me to shorten some of my opening points that linked with today's challenges, especially noting the extinction level threats posed with immediacy by nuclear weapons if they are ever used, and over a period of time through climate destruction. And as we've seen, we need these resources that are plowed into nuclear weapons of mass destruction. We need them collectively to help us through the health and environmental and climate and other kinds of security challenges that we now face. And as Lauren has said, the clock to entry into force of the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, to give it its full title, started its 90-day countdown when the 50th state's accession documents were deposited at the UN in New York on the 24th of October, UN Day, in 2020. And on 22nd of January 2021, just 2 weeks away now, it becomes international law. So why should Britain join the TPNW? Nuclear weapons cannot make us safe or secure. As you saw from the video, being nuclear armed does not deter climate chaos, deadly pandemics, terrorism, or indeed populist incompetence running governments. The weapons have divided Britain since the 1950s, when the first nuclear test was carried out in 1952. And they get in the way of the world pooling our collective capabilities and resources for dealing with the real threats and crises in our lives and security. The Scottish people have already overwhelmingly endorsed the treaty. Its provisions are seen as offering legal pathways to end Scotland's unwilling complicity in UK nuclear weapons and policies, from the transporting and storing of Aldermaston's warheads in Coolport to the nuclear-armed submarines deployed from Faslane. Let's look at some of the other issues. Nuclear weapons and power may dazzle unscrupulous populists, but they carry dangerously high environmental safety and financial costs. One more accident or detonation could have catastrophic humanitarian consequences. Think Trump, Boris, Putin, Netanyahu, Modi, Xi, Khan, Macron, Kim Jong-un. Does anyone really want to continue letting such men have nuclear weapons of mass destruction? The treaty was enacted to prevent nuclear use and war, taking the risks, dangers, and consequences into account. There were a series of conferences in Oslo, in Mexico, in Vienna, which heard from experts in climate, in risks. Chatham House, for example, showed that we had come close to the use of nuclear weapons and war at least 13 times since the beginning of the 1960s. So these were all the issues that fed into the decision by states following two UN General Assembly mandated open-ended working groups, talks in 2013 and 2016. These all fed into the decision by the UN General Assembly in 2016 to hold negotiations in 2017. And on the 7th of July, 2017, this treaty was adopted by 122 UN member states with one vote against. Now, that doesn't tell the whole story, because around about 35 nuclear armed and nuclear complicit, nuclear endorsing states, if you like, in NATO and other nuclear alliances chose to boycott. They weren't left out. They chose to boycott. The negotiations were held under UN General Assembly rules, which means they were open to all and blockable by none. So when I think about this treaty, not only does it clearly ban nuclear use and threats, but also the production, testing, deployment, stockpiling, possession, and other activities that could enable anyone to acquire and use nuclear weapons. The treaty also forbids states parties to, quote, assist, encourage, or induce anyone to commit any actions that are prohibited by the treaty. This applies through national implementation measures and normative developments to states and non-state actors, companies, as well as individuals. Now, if we don't want the UK or NATO to use nuclear weapons on our behalf, we have to persuade our governments to join the treaty and stop funding, making, deploying, sharing, and threatening to use nuclear weapons. So as this UN treaty becomes international law, we here in Britain have new opportunities to contribute Britain's technical, legal, and diplomatic skills, especially in areas of verification and the elimination of nuclear arsenals, where we have followed through a number of studies. These important obligations, along with environmental remediation, assistance to victims of nuclear use and testing, and the full implementation of the treaty, will be high on the agenda when the first meeting of TPNW states parties is convened by Austria later this year. So we know the UK government is not going to sign this treaty overnight. We at least encourage that the UK government should start preparing, because this treaty has implications for all of our security, and should at least apply and attend the first meeting of states parties and indeed subsequent meetings of TPNW parties as an observer until the political decision can be made to sign and then ratify. UK governments have long promoted multilateral nuclear disarmament, so they should have backed the disarmament process that led to the TPNW. They failed to step up then. We need to persuade them to step up now. This treaty joins the rules-based body of international laws and agreements. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres told at the time of the Hiroshima 75th anniversary, called this treaty the next pillar of the nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation regime. The UK needs to wake up and exceed. We can make this happen by informing and mobilizing Britain's people and institutions, persuade MPs and work with local councils to adopt motions of support, call on the government to engage constructively with the TPNW and observe the meetings of states parties. This is our treaty, we, the peoples of the United Nations. And it is up to us here in the UK to keep active until every remaining nuclear bomb is eliminated.